Hi, thank you for joining me today. As you plan for your upcoming workshop, wouldn't it be ideal if your room and environment were already in tip-top shape? We know this is usually not the case, and you will always have to spend time preparing your room prior to the first day of the workshop. As the facilitator, it's your role to take ownership of your workshop environment to foster an excellent and efficient learning environment and experience for all of your participants. My name is Keith Mose, and I want to take a few moments to give you some tips on readying your workshop environment. It is absolutely imperative that you inspect and prepare your room 1 to 3 days prior to the first day of your workshop. Upon arriving to your classroom, these are the things you need to look for. First, check the thermostat and make sure that the heat or air is turned on. If it is turned on, the temperature setting and the actual room temperature should match. In other words, if the thermostat is set at 78, the room temp should also be 78. If it isn't turned on, turn it on, set it to your desired temperature, and make it a point to check it later to ensure it's working properly. Now, look for clutter. Just look around the room for clutter. Usually the room has been cleaned. However, double check under tables and in any closets, cabinets, so on and so forth, just in case something was overlooked. Like this. Wastebasket should be easily accessible to all of your participants and emptied at the end of each day. Make sure the room is well lit. There should not be any flickering bulbs in the room. This can be such a huge distraction to your participants. There should actually be a working wall clock that's visible to you and all of the participants. This will also help you as the facilitator to stay on track with the workshop agenda and timelines. This is my class roster and sign-in sheet. I use this for so many things as I'm preparing for the workshop. Using this, I can count and make sure that I have enough chairs in the room for me and all of the participants. That's what you need to do. If the chairs are adjustable and on casters, ensure everything is working correctly. We've all sat in chairs that have all done this, only usually a lot faster. And it's so unnerving and disturbing. Worse yet, we've all been in the ones where the backs give out and all of a sudden you tilt back. We don't want this happening to our participants. So check them all and then clear all of the chairs out of the room if possible and put them in another room until the workshop is over, leaving a couple of chairs in the room as extras in case the worst happens. Now let's talk about cords and outlets. If your workshop is going to have computers, laptops, or any kind of electronics for hands-on participation, make sure there's enough outlets for the participants. If not, you're going to have to make arrangements to have power strips available. Also, ensure there are enough outlets at your facilitator's table to accommodate any of your electronic devices. There should be no loose cords where traffic occurs, or foot traffic rather. If you don't have cord protector for these kind of cords and they're on the floor in a foot traffic area, duct tape them to the floor. Loose cords are extremely hazardous for you as the facilitator as well as for all of the participants. I was once doing a workshop in St. Louis and my manager was there auditing my class and I had not taped the cord going from the back wall up to my table and I was going back and forth doing my workshop training and I tripped on the cord. So it goes without saying that that was a coaching moment after the workshop was over for my manager to have with me. Now look around the room and look for any audio-visual equipment you might be using throughout the workshop. Your goal is to make sure it's working properly. This is going to include things like an overhead LCD projector, a television, a DVR playback device, and their remotes. Make sure the projector screen is lowering and retracts properly and smoothly. Finally, make sure you know how to proficiently operate all of the equipment. Make sure that your dry erase board is clean and stocked with markers, at least one eraser and cleaner. Test all of the markers to make sure their ink is easily read and vibrant. The use of different color markers can be very effective visually. If you're going to be using a flip chart, make sure it's located where all of the participants can see it clearly. Have plenty of permanent markers on hand and determine where you're going to keep them throughout the workshop. You don't want to be looking around the classroom for permanent markers for your flip chart. So this is what I've done. I made a little container that says flip chart markers, and this is the permanent markers, right? You want to keep those separate from your dry erase markers. Sometimes people will just grab a marker, go up to the dry erase board, and write something. When it happens with permanent ink, it's bad news. So again, keep your permanent markers in the place away from the dry erase markers. If you want to show the displayed pages around the room, make sure they're the self-adhesive kind. Finally, even if everything works perfectly, make sure you know who to call in case something does break down. Having the phone number easily accessible will ensure that you get assistance just as soon as possible to get the issue resolved and your workshop back on track. Once the room has passed inspection, now it's time to get it set up and prepared for your workshop. First, go check that thermostat to make sure it is indeed working. I cannot emphasize this enough. You do not want extreme temperatures either way at any time during your workshop. Arrange the tables and chairs in your preferred room style. I use the U-shaped classroom setup with my table up front and centered. Set up a registration table by the door. Make sure it has your sign-in sheet, your pre-printed name badges, and you got this information from your class roster or sign-in sheet, unscented Kleenex, and unscented hand sanitizer. You also might want to have some individually wrapped breath mints available, and maybe some bottles of water for people as they're coming into the workshop. It's really important to create and maintain a clean and sanitary environment. Use disinfectant wipes to clean all surfaces that you and the participants will come in contact with, and place those unscented Kleenexes and hand sanitizers all over the room. You cannot have too many. Also, put some on your facilitator's table. Consider placing wrapped candy or mints on the participants' table. Stay away from the kind that easily melt or make a mess. It's thoughtful to offer sugar-free candy for those who cannot eat sugar. If you're providing pens and notepads, place them on the participants' table along with the workbooks and all other additional materials. Keep the extras on your facilitator's table. I have found that extra supplies placed anywhere else in the room tend to disappear quickly. Now, using the class roster, print the participants' name tents and place them where you want each participant seated. Assigned seating helps encourage interpersonal engagement and cultivate workshop participation. Now, take a look at your facilitator's table and make sure that you have everything you need, starting with your facilitator's guide for the workshop and all additional materials. You want to make sure those are ready to go. For me, it's also important to keep the following items within reach: paper clips, Scotch tape, a stapler with plenty of staples. And while I don't distribute highlighters to all of the participants, I keep them handy because some participants find them useful for their learning style. I also keep post-it notes for notes or reminders for me that I need to jot down for anything, or sometimes as I'm going through the facilitator's guide and workshop material, I see something I need to tweak for a future workshop, so I jot it down and put it in the appropriate place. Are you going to be using a laptop and any PowerPoint decks? This is the ideal time to connect your laptop to the LCD projector and make sure the connection works correctly. If it's not the LCD projector and it's a large TV screen, do the same. Now, go through the PowerPoint decks to make sure all of the slides and transitions are working correctly. You do not want any showstoppers during your workshop presentation. As you go through the decks, it's also going to give you a fresh sense of the content of your workshop. Finally, to reiterate what we discussed earlier, have a list of phone numbers you would need in case of an emergency. Know your company's policies and procedures pertaining to medical emergencies. Well, now you can call it a day and get some rest. You have readied your room to foster an excellent workshop environment and experience. Well, here it is. It's the first day of the workshop. You might be nervous, but guess what? You know your room is ready to go. So here's just a few more tips as you go into your day. First of all, arrive early. While you always want to be in your room before any participants arrive, it is important that you are there even earlier on the first day. I try to arrive at least 45 minutes before starting time. Now, set the thermostat to foster the best learning experience possible. Studies show that high classroom temperatures as well as low classroom temperatures can affect a student's ability to learn and function. Dun and Dun of LearningStyles.net say that when temperatures are too hot or too cold, your brain is constantly reminding the body to do something about that condition. Because of the constant interruption, it is hard for the student to stay focused. The recommended and ideal temperature is 72 degrees. Write a warm welcome on the whiteboard using legible print. It should contain the name of the workshop and your name as the facilitator. Consider having some smooth, soft music playing. This will help you relax and help create a soothing and welcome environment for the participants as they arrive. Also, think about leaving the door closed and locked until 20 or 30 minutes prior to the beginning of the workshop. This gives you uninterrupted quiet time to gather your thoughts until you're ready to open the door and start the day. Now, put your name tag on. Because once you open the door, stand by the registration table, warmly greet each participant as they arrive. Ask them to sign in, pick up their name badge, and take their designated seat. Once all of your participants have arrived and are seated, you are ready to begin your workshop. So, in closing, there are two statements that I remember in practice each and every day. I have found them to not only be true, but to be very appropriate and meaningful in the field of learning and development. They are, tools left in the toolbox never build anything. The other one is proper planning prevents poor performance. Again, thank you for joining me and make it a great day.